Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his brow as he stared at the holographic display floating above his weathered desk. The job posting had been up for 3 standard weeks now, and still no responses. His farm on the outer rim planet of Havens. Edge desperately needed workers. The harvest season was approaching, and managing 200 acres of biocorn alone was impossible, even with automated systems. The old farmer had inherited the land from his grandfather, one of the original human settlers who had carved civilization out of this harsh frontier world. 3 generations of backbreaking work had made the Chen farm one of the most productive on Haven's Edge, but Marcus was getting older, and his son had chosen the stars over the soil. A soft chime from his communication console interrupted his brooding. Marcus frowned. Visitors were rare this far from the main settlement. The external sensors showed a small, battered transport vessel settling onto his landing pad with obvious mechanical difficulty. Smoke wisped from its engines. Marcus grabbed his plasma rifle, old habits from the frontier wars, and stepped onto his porch. What emerged from the ship made him pause. 5 figures approached slowly, their movements careful and non-threatening. They were clearly alien, tall, graceful beings with elongated limbs and skin that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on the light. Their large, dark eyes held a mixture of desperation and dignity that struck something deep in Marcus's chest. The lead figure, distinguished by intricate markings along her neck, stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice carried the melodic quality typical of the Zephyrian species, though it trembled with exhaustion. "Honored human," she began, her translator device crackling with static. "I am Lyrelay of the 9th Harmony. We have come seeking sanctuary." Marcus lowered his rifle but kept his guard up. Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and artists, but the frontier had taught him caution. Sanctuary from what? Lyrelay's companions moved closer, and Marcus could see they were all females, their faces bearing the telltale marks of grief, dimmed bioluminescent patches that indicated mourning among their kind. "The hegemony came to our world," Lyrelay continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "They said our husbands were conspirators, sympathizers with the human rebellion. They were executed without trial. Our homes, our children." She paused, collecting herself. "We 5 managed to escape. We have been traveling for months, seeking any world that would take us." Marcus studied them carefully. Their clothing was fine but travel-worn, and despite their obvious exhaustion, they maintained a dignified bearing. These were no criminals or con artists. They were refugees, survivors of the hegemony's brutal expansion across the rim worlds. "Why here?" Marcus asked. "Why my farm?" The smallest of the group, barely reaching Marcus's shoulder, stepped forward. "We intercepted your employment transmission. We know farm work. Our people are cultivators by nature. We ask not for charity but for the chance to earn our place." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He'd heard the stories. Entire Zephyrian communities wiped out by the hegemony for the crime of trading with human worlds. The galactic community turned a blind eye, too afraid of the hegemony's military might to intervene. "You know I'm human," he said finally. "Harboring you could bring trouble." Lyrelay nodded. "We know the risk we bring. If you refuse us, we understand. But we have nowhere else to go. The other species, they fear association with those the hegemony has marked." Marcus looked at each of them in turn. These weren't just aliens seeking work. They were beings who had lost everything, who had traveled across the galaxy on the slim hope that a human might show them mercy. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humans were considered the troublemakers, the rebels, the dangerous ones. Yet here they were, the only species willing to stand against tyranny. "The work's hard," Marcus said after a long moment. 14-hour days during harvest. The pay's fair, but it's frontier wages. And if the hegemony comes looking, we will not bring dishonor to your house," Lyrelay said quickly. "We are skilled in soil cultivation, atmospheric processing, and bioenhancement techniques. We can increase your yield by 30%, perhaps more." Marcus made his decision with the quick pragmatism that had kept his family alive on the frontier for 3 generations. There's a bunkhouse out back. Hasn't been used in years, but it's solid. You can stay there. Work starts at dawn. The relief that washed over the 5 aliens was palpable. The smallest one, who introduced herself as Naya, actually fell to her knees in gratitude. "Thank you," Lyrelay whispered. "You risk much for strangers." Marcus shouldered his rifle and turned toward the house. "Maybe. But my grandfather always said that how you treat folks with nowhere else to go says more about you than anything else." He paused at his door. "Besides, I need the help." Over the following months, Marcus discovered that Lyrelay hadn't exaggerated their skills. The Zephyrians possessed an almost mystical understanding of growing things. Under their care, his crops flourished like never before. They worked with a quiet efficiency that spoke of generations of agricultural knowledge. But more than that, they brought something Marcus hadn't realized he'd been missing: companionship. Evenings found them sharing stories on his porch, the aliens describing the beauty of their lost homeworld while Marcus regaled them with tales of human stubbornness and frontier ingenuity. It was Naya who first spotted the hegemony ships on the horizon. "Marcus," she called, her voice tight with controlled fear. "They've found us." Marcus stepped out of his house, his old rifle in hand, and watched the sleek black vessels descend. 3 heavy cruisers, more than enough firepower to level his farm and everything on it. "You should run," he told the 5 aliens as they gathered behind him. Lyrelay shook her head. "Where would we go? This is our stand." The lead hegemony ship landed with predatory grace, and armored figures emerged. Their commander, a tall humanoid with the characteristic cybernetic implants of the hegemony military caste, approached with obvious contempt. "Human farmer," the commander announced, his voice artificially amplified. "You are harboring fugitives from hegemony justice. Surrender them and you will be permitted to continue your existence." Marcus spat in the dust and raised his rifle. "This is human territory. You got no jurisdiction here." The commander's laugh was like grinding metal. "Human territory? Your kind are a galactic pest. You have no authority to—" "Actually," Marcus interrupted, pulling out a datapad. "According to Galactic Settlement Law, Section 47C, any being who works a frontier claim for more than 6 months gains protected status under planetary sovereignty rights." He gestured to the thriving fields around them. "These ladies have been working this land. That makes them citizens of Haven's Edge, under human protection." The commander's expression darkened. "Legal technicalities will not save you when—" "When what?" Marcus asked calmly. "When you murder human citizens on human soil? You think the Terra Colonial Defense Force won't hear about that? Sure, you can glass this farm, but humans have a funny habit of holding grudges. Kill us, and every human world in the sector will know the hegemony massacred farmers for the crime of giving refugees honest work." For a long moment, the only sound was the wind through the bio cornstalks. Then, to Marcus's surprise, Lyrelay stepped forward. "Commander," she said, her voice carrying new strength, "we claim right of sanctuary under human protection. We are no longer subjects of the worlds you conquered, but citizens of Haven's Edge." The other 4 Zephyrians moved to stand beside her, their fear replaced by quiet determination. Marcus felt a surge of pride as he watched these broken refugees transform into defiant citizens. This was what humanity did. They took in the lost, the desperate, the forgotten, and gave them a reason to stand tall again. The hegemony commander's cybernetic eye whirred as he calculated odds, political ramifications, and the growing reputation of human stubbornness across the galaxy. Finally, he gestured to his troops. "This is not over, human." "No," Marcus agreed, watching the black ships lift off into the sunset. "But it's a start." As the hegemony vessels disappeared into the void, Lyrelay placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Thank you," she said, "for giving us back our dignity." Marcus smiled, looking out over fields that had never been more productive, worked by beings who had never been more free. "Just good business," he said. best workers I ever hired. But as he watched his alien employees, his friends, tend to the crops that would feed both human and Zephyrian families, Marcus Chen knew the truth. Sometimes the best investments weren't measured in credits or yields, but in the simple act of treating desperate people like they still mattered. And that more than any technology or weapon was humanity's greatest strength.